This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. I've been super fortunate to be able to do this for about 6 seasons since the middle of 2018. So count up from that, it's either 6 or 7 seasons. I've been able to do this for that long, which is a privilege. And one of the points of that privilege is that I get to see Browns fans and how they behave and react to certain things at a more macro level than the average person or average Browns fan gets to see, because I'm not just interacting with the Browns fans in my life or the select few that I see online. I'm seeing the reactions of tens of thousands of Browns fans all at one time. So when the Browns go through a stretch like this where they lose 2 out of their first 3, there's not much I see that surprises me from a reaction standpoint. I've heard Browns fans say a number of things, and usually whenever the Browns lose 2 out of 3 games, no matter at what point the season is, no matter what the record of the team is, you're going to hear people make the point or making the argument for this being the same disappointment that 2019 was or that 2021 was. And you're probably seeing a ton of people make that point in the comment sections or on Twitter, where they're expressing their disappointment in how the team's playing by declaring the season somewhat over by making it so that it's the same thing as 2019. If you'll remember, last year this happened, right? The Browns lost to the Ravens. Deshaun Watson's status was up in the air, and people were already declaring the season over. They were telling me, oh, this is just like in 2019 when we played the 49ers. This is just like in 2021 when we played this team, when we played Arizona. We're going to get embarrassed. This is going to happen to us. And, the season plays out how the season plays out. But the reason I bring that up is to not discuss whether this is another 2019 or 2021 for the Cleveland Browns. Honestly, today in this video, I'm not really discussing the Cleveland Browns. I want to talk about us, Browns fans. And if Browns fans are a part of the problem for the Cleveland Browns. Now, again, I said, I've been doing this for a while, and whenever the Browns struggle, you see a number of takes rear their head, right? Oh, this is just like 08. This is just like 19. This is just like 20. Obviously, the fire insert guy stuff always goes crazy when the team struggles for obvious reasons. But another thing that happens is that when the team struggles, there's a surge of cynicism and negativity. And this surge happens for very natural reasons. The Browns aren't producing very many things that would make anybody feel positive or optimistic. A lot of the stuff to say about the Browns is not positive or optimistic, which means that it emboldens people who are already prone to being negative to be like super OD negative. Like, you'll ever notice if the team has like a really bad loss, that is the exact moment somebody decides to get their like most crazy fringe takeoff. Like when the Browns went on that losing stretch in 2023 last year, there were people advocating that the guy who would eventually win Coach of the Year at the end of the season should have been fired on the spot, right? Or in 2022 or 2021, people were making these takes up about how Myles Garrett is overrated. Like, you hear the craziest stuff from a certain section of the fan base when the team is losing, because it is the most opportune moment for somebody to get their most unhinged takeoff about the Cleveland Browns when they are losing, especially if that take is negative, right? Because that's going to be the stuff that's going to be most socially acceptable. That's when your garbage take about Miles being overrated is going to get the best chance of getting the most likes. Still only going to get like 10 likes, but it has the best chance of getting the most likes at when the timeline looks like that. Or the opposite can happen, right? If the Browns are playing well, all kind of craziness gets to take off, right? We saw Joe Flacco win comeback player of the year last year over a very deserving Baker Mayfield based off the strength of 6 games, just because the vibes were that damn good in Cleveland, right? Like, you can get the nuttiest takes off when the Browns are winning that are positive. A lot of people thought the Browns would go in there, blow out the Texans, and then blow out the Ravens and win the Super Bowl with Joe Flacco. That was a serious take that was out there that was kind of being taken seriously. Some even brought it up on ESPN that they thought the Browns could do that. See, when things are rolling positively, the positive takes get out of hand. People say all kind of unrealistic stuff. And when the negativity is rolling downhill, the negativity gets out of hand and people start saying all kind of crazy negative stuff. That's kind of just the nature of how we react to things as people. But it's important to remember that your initial reaction to something is going to be your least informed, least thought out take that you're ever going to have on whatever it is that you are reacting to. And just because you had a reaction does not mean you got to marry yourself to keeping the thought that you had as a reaction forever. Somebody's going to decide this is the perfect opportunity to tell you that they always thought Myles Garrett sucked or something like that. Like, they're going to try to get a crazy take off because they know that the environment is negative enough to where that take might not get challenged. But back to my point about how the Browns not playing well is going to create an environment of negativity that kind of builds on top of itself. And Browns fans whose first reaction or first instinct isn't to be upset or extremely pessimistic about the team's future will notice people doing that, and it will annoy them to the point to they'll say, those people, those negative people, they are the reason the Browns lose. You are the reason. Everything around this team has changed. The quarterback has changed. The GM has changed. The head coaches have changed. The ownership has changed. But yet this team still stays in the same place. It's because of y'all, right? That's usually where we get to when the Browns are in this environment, is that people start blaming the negative Browns fans, and then the negative Browns fans start calling the positive Browns fans a bunch of delusional folk who need to be realistic. And then we get into a bunch of arguments online that go nowhere, make nobody happy, and do nothing to improve anybody's life. But blaming Browns fans for the Browns' issues on the field or the Browns underperforming on the field is just wrong. Browns fans are not part of the problem for Cleveland. The Browns fans are the best asset that the Cleveland Browns have ever had and will ever have, right? That is what the Browns fan base is to this franchise. They are the best thing about this team. Now, do they do things that are annoying? Do fans in football in general, do Browns fans do things that are annoying, especially if you're in community with them? Absolutely. There are things that Browns fans do to drive me crazy, right? Sometimes some Browns fans could be real quick to be real defeatist during a game. Like, the Browns can get a touchdown scored on them, and there's somebody here saying that the Browns game is over, the season's done. It's like week 1 and they've let 1 touchdown score. Yes, that stuff is annoying. There's a lot of things that are annoying about how Browns fans specifically interact with being Browns fans, and especially with other Browns fans. But that doesn't change the fact that the Browns as But that doesn't change the fact that the Browns fan base is the best thing about this franchise. Yes, Browns fans can sometimes turn Cleveland Browns Stadium into a horrible place to play for the Browns, right? We have seen this in action this year because of the hostility that's just, it's so thick in that stadium. You can just cut it with a knife. But because of that hostility that's very palpable in the stadium, it makes you feel like that's part of the reason the team is underperforming, because the team doesn't feel as supported by their fan base. But it is worth remembering that the fans pay to go to a game and the players get paid to play in the game, which means what happens in the game is largely the fault of the players, and blaming the result of what the players do and the coaches do in a game because the fans weren't as good as you want them to be, or maybe they were a little bit mean and booed, is ridiculous. It's ridiculous to assume that the Browns fan base is part of the problem. Can the Browns fan base be annoying? Sometimes. Can there be people in the fan base that drive you crazy? Are there tendencies that this fan base has that just make you want to pull out your hair? Yes. This fan base's obsession with firing coaches and GMs because they were partly conditioned to think that was an acceptable response to anything going wrong on the football field is definitely not one of the more appealing parts about being a Browns fan. The amount of wars this fan base tears itself into over quarterbacks is enough to make you want a lobotomy. Like the amount of times I have been told by some Browns fan on the internet to pick a side on a quarterback war when my job is to talk about the Browns is insane. And some fans get so dug in to these wars and these things that really don't matter and these differences of opinion that really aren't that deep. And they dig in so much that they make these things riffs and they root for these things to be right. And yes, that is annoying when Browns fans do that. That is annoying that Browns fans are doing that right now over the quarterback position. That sometimes it feels like some fans would rather be validated about whatever take they had about the quarterback position than actually want the team to be right. I say it here on this channel. I could care less if I'm right or wrong. I just want the team to be good. Some people, it feels like, would rather want that validation from being kind of right about something that they kind of said, and they make it like their whole point of fandom is to root for that. That's just people being weird on the internet. It's not most Browns fans, because those things aren't exclusive to the Browns fan base. That's just what modern sports fandom has turned into, especially online, which is a bunch of standing. It's a bunch of getting in a side of an argument and never being willing to accept that things have changed. Like the amount of times that people confuse me changing my opinion because of more evidence being showed over time with like flip-flopping is concerning to me, because what people suggest when they say stuff like that is that I should not change my mind no matter what happens in reality because I said something one time. It goes back to what I said about your reaction. Your reaction to something, the instant that it happens or the seconds after a game, are that, your reaction. And usually your reaction is going to be your worst take that you have on whatever it is that happened, because you're not going to be as informed about it. You don't know as much information. Things haven't been really contextualized yet. It's important to remember that you don't have to double down on your reaction just because you had it. If you had a reaction and that reaction is wrong, you have all the right in the world to change your mind. And that's what a smart person would do, is realize that their reaction was wrong and change their mind, instead of doubling and tripling down on a reaction that they had out of a sheer wish to be right about it one day. But don't confuse that frustration with Browns fans are a part of the problem. This team exists because of the Browns fans. This team came back because of the strength of Browns fans, and this team will continue to exist because of Browns fans. Browns fans are the Browns' proven number one asset. That's the number one thing about the Cleveland Browns. When somebody gets traded here and they enjoy living in Cleveland, the first thing they talk about is the fan base and how different it is to be in a city that cares this much about their football team. Yes, that passion can turn into annoying things. Yes, Cleveland is not the city that some people assume it is, right? Sometimes people look at Cleveland and think it's one of those polite Midwest cities, but Cleveland's a lot closer to Philadelphia than I think a lot of people like to admit. And yeah, we will boo you if you go 3-and-out multiple times. In the same way, people don't take it personal in Philadelphia, I think people need to do the same thing in Cleveland. And you see the Browns team telling you that they're not taking it personal, because that's just part of what Browns fans do. We're passionate. We get mad. We boo if the team stinks. It is what it is. It's part of playing in Cleveland. And I understand that some people want that to not be an issue that the players have to deal with, but it is. That's the price of a passionate fan base, right? The Jacksonville Jaguars don't have that problem. But you know what else the Jacksonville Jaguars don't have? Fans. Shout out to JP. JP is definitely a Jaguar fan, and there are dedicated Jaguar fans out there who put their work in. But by and large, it's not the biggest fan base in the NFL. It's not close to the biggest fan base in the NFL. So no, I don't think Browns fans are part of the problem. I think Browns fans are the Browns' number one asset. And if the Browns put a good product on the field, you feel the roar of Browns fans. Remember how it was at the end of 2023 when Browns fans were in there slamming, getting loud? Don't get it twisted. The team's not playing well, and the fan base is not having a great reaction to the team. And I can understand some people wanting the fan base to have a more polite reaction to what's going on here. But that's just not how Cleveland gets down. And that's part of what I love about being from Cleveland. But never, ever fool yourself into thinking the Browns fan base is anything but an asset to this city and this team. That's my thoughts. Let me know what you think. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.